Good morning, everybody. Welcome to MCR Morning Coffee Review. It is a frigid February, but it's also February 18th, which means we got some exciting stuff that we can talk about. But first, how's it going today, Michael?
Good. Excited about some of the news. There are some good things on the horizon. Be aware that Unbound is finally coming up this year, and it will be in September. It'll be the last week of September into the beginning week of October. I forget the dates. It's that last week that's a blend with October.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Jason and I will be going, and we also are going to submit classes. So be aware, submittal for classes are open. So if any of you that love to join MCR, and we know all of you are very knowledgeable about Bluebeam, feel free to submit, right? The more, the better.
Absolutely. And that's what I wanted to mention. So the dates are September 30th through October 2nd. It will be in Washington, D.C. And the call for speakers is out, meaning you, anybody. If you use Bluebeam or if you don't, if you just have topics, there are different things that you can submit on. So the call for presenters is open. So there are different, three different categories. So the
Let's
first
bring that
one
up.
is called Breaking Barriers. So tell us how you've broken down silos. What about I just share my screen?
That's what I was going to say.
Okay, we can do that. So, presentation categories, breaking barriers. Tell us how you've broken down silos and enhanced collaboration across teams, time zones, and projects to enable a more efficient, sustainable future. That's a good one, right? Because time zones are a thing. Even here, I'm dealing with Eastern and Pacific and Mountain. I deal with all of the time zones just here, and I work for a company that only does work in the United States. A lot of our companies that we work with are global, and they've got offices in India and Singapore and wherever else. And you're going across multiple multiple zones, and like different. People are sleeping while you're trying to work, and how do you get things done? This is a great topic. And silos. I like how they just put silos there. They're very real, especially in companies that have multiple offices. How do you deal with that? I there was a firm that I was talking to 2 weeks ago. Like, yeah, we have an office in Houston. We have an office in Dallas. We don't know what each other's doing. Like, that's a silo. That's not really a good thing.
Yeah, I would. So that's almost like a case study. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Breaking
Yeah.
barriers. Okay.
Yep. And the next topic is innovation at scale. So, have you successfully implemented new technology or processes across your organization? Share expert insights into what it takes to transcend impossible. So, this is what you've seen Doug do over the past couple of weeks when he popped in here and showed his Power Query and stuff. That's innovation. That's stuff that not a whole lot of folks are doing inside of Bluebeam, and he's pushing the boundaries and helping others do the same. So, I would put you in that category, Doug. But there's a lot of cool stuff that people have done. Custom tool sets, custom hatches, custom workflows, and custom columns, and different ways to push the software in well beyond just markups on PDFs. Which kind of goes with the last category, unleashing human creativity. So Unbound celebrates human ingenuity. Oh boy, I almost got that word on the first try. Show us how you've used out-of-the-box thinking to develop bold new ways of tackling your most pressing challenges. So, Doug, you're on there too. I don't know which one you submitted for. It's early. All right. I went to a concert last night. My ears are still ringing. But out-of-the-box thinking. So again, I put the Power Query stuff in there too. But all good topics, all good things. This will be a good time. Now,
is there any more? I'm wondering it.
That's the three that they've put in there.
Yeah. Okay.
So I haven't gone through, and it's actually an office form. Interesting. So yeah, those are the themes. So cool. If you're selected, you get one complimentary registration ticket, and you have a month and a half to submit, basically. But good deal. ATG will be there. We have a booth. I believe we're a silver sponsor. And we also, as a silver sponsor, we have some promo codes that we can share. So on our LinkedIn group, I posted yesterday a special code that will get you 20% off, and that includes the early bird prices. So even if you're not feeling like you want to submit for a speaker, even if you know you want to go, um, you can also get the Bluebeam certification exam. You can save 20%. No cookies, please. Yeah, I'm not going to do this. I don't forgot what the
So you
pricing was.
so it gives
There
you,
we go.
scroll down, it gives you a BCEP
Mm-hmm.
exam.
Yep.
They're
Free. That's normally
they're just
250
calling it,
bucks, or is it $100?
it's $100. They're
100
just
bucks.
calling it Bluebeam certified exam, not professional exam. Okay.
Yeah.
And then they actually have Bluebeam Essentials training there as well. And then
Pre-conference. So there's a 6-hour pre-conference workshop. So if you want to go a day early and get ramped up on Bluebeam, I mean, that would be an exceptional 3 or 4 days of just Bluebeam mastery by the time you leave there.
yeah, learning. They have government discount, student discount, group discount, and then we also have our discount. So
Yep.
go over to our LinkedIn page if you're not part of it. Maybe we'll just keep it there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And save 20%. So that's one night of your hotel free. So the code is Unbound ATG. So should be easy to figure out, but go over LinkedIn page. I'm guessing you're not hitting register right now, but our morning coffee review group, I posted yesterday on February 17th. Should be easy to find. But yeah, save some money, register. We look forward to seeing you
um,
there.
People said right after AU, yes. So I
Yeah.
would assume some folks have to decide which one they're going to go to. Maybe you'll be able to go to both. Next one is MCR Live from David. We did an MCR Live at XCon. We'll see. We'll see what we're doing there, and the possibility to maybe have an MCR Live.
We talked about maybe doing MCR live from our booth too, since we're going to have a booth. And I don't know if anybody who went to AU noticed, there were other people like setting up a podcast booth and they're just sort of doing it there, which had a very strict schedule. Like, oh, from here to here, we're having this person come in. And Michael and I have had conversations about how could we make this work and how much equipment would we have to take. But it could be fun. It could be fun.
Yeah,
So,
Jason and I, we're not very strict to schedules and
no.
making sure everything's like in line. We're very freeform and transparent with everything that we do. So when we saw those, we're like, that's not really us, but it would be fun to have people come by, talk. So we're brainstorming to keep still in the vein of what we like to do and prepare for all of you that will be going and being able to see us there as well. And of course, as always, I love having goodies. We're going to hopefully get some good swag to hand out too.
Yeah, so it'll be a good time. Conference season is going to be pretty busy. So with AU and AU and Bluebeam Unbound and the Ezra User Conference and what Built Worlds is back.
I
I
think
mean,
we're finally back at what did it take? Let's say 4 years to full conference
mm-hmm,
season. I'm gonna go to the
mm-hmm.
LinkedIn page right now where you post that thing and post a link to the page in here. There was a question from Brian Haley about signatures. What's our topic today,
Today we're
Jason?
gonna go back and talk raster and vector, and I thought
Okay.
we'd also touch. I know next week we're talking about Bluebeam add-ins, so I won't cover this too much, but um, revisit the raster vector because there's still some confusion about it. How we're getting, I didn't intend for this to be raster. I didn't intend for this to be vector. Like maybe you do want one or the other. So we're gonna talk about that, and then obviously that's not gonna take the whole time. So if there's other things y'all want to talk about, throw it in the
Yeah.
chat and we will cover it.
Yeah, I posted the link, and then maybe we'll talk about this because I was going to post back on Brian Haley's comment about Windows certificates and different options about how you attain those. So we'll touch on that too as well, since digital signatures. I've gotten a couple questions lately about digital signatures and
Hmm.
authentication for them. So we'll revisit that for sure.
Yeah, there was another one that came up not too long ago. Different companies that you can just download or have their own certificates that you can download and then upload into Bluebeam
Yep.
and trust and different. I don't fully understand them, so maybe you can educate me more on that because I just use the Windows stuff that's built in.
Yeah, I pinned his comment, so it's at the top. It was being moved down from other comments, so I
Mm.
put yours at the top, Jason.
Super, super. All righty. Well, shall we? Shall we get into
Yes.
this? All
Yes.
right. Well, I actually have things pulled up because holy crap, I prepared today. Isn't this
Jason
amazing?
prepared
Yeah, yeah,
everybody. I think
yeah,
this is a new
yeah.
new era.
I figured I had to do something to keep myself awake. I need to make another cup of coffee, but um, raster vector, we're going to go very simply, right? I'm going to use the sample stuff. You've probably seen us use it before. Um, how does this look, by the way? I'm sharing. I got the new
It's
widescreen since last week, and does it look okay when I'm
I'm
sharing full?
confused
Because I
because
also have
it's
AutoCAD.
yeah, so I'm confused right here because it's not full screen.
Mm. Okay, so make it full screen.
Yes. So go back to
Let's
share.
go back. Let's go back. Because I always
So
worry that it's going to be too stretched out. I can do half and half if that makes it better and just share Bluebeam. But hey, whatever. While
no,
we're
I
in here,
think let's talk about this. So this is a screen size that we're seeing as why it looks stretched, correct?
yep,
So if you were to get a larger monitor, I think this is a good keynote here for this. You
mm,
get a lot more real estate on your viewing space. So if you were to split screen, which I know you will at some point, it's pretty cool. Well
yeah,
worth, I think, an investment of a larger screen, right?
yeah. It's the
Wow.
same as having two monitors, right? But there's no dividing stuff in the middle.
What size
But
is it?
it's 34-inch ultra
Okay.
wide. Um, they're really cheap actually right now. I tried to hurry because I thought tariffs were going to mess with things, but it was on sale, so not too
Nice.
bad. Um, the price range is crazy. This was $250. They go up to like 2 grand, and there's not a whole lot in the middle. So, um, but anyhow, let's go back. Let's go back. So
And I
I'll.
would assume it's like hertz changing and quality, right? Is
You're
that when
saying
you're
words I
going
don't
up?
understand. Probably.
Like your refresh rate is essentially what's happening with your hertz. So
Mhm.
basically it's like 144, I'm assuming, and then you probably get more when you get higher up the line at past 144, you're probably paying more for that. So your refresh rate of your screen
I
is
think
essentially
this
what's happening.
was 160 hertz or 180,
Yeah.
and then 1 millisecond. I think
Response
those are the
time.
specs. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I just sharing Bluebeam now. Tried to make it a little bit more aspect ratio friendly. Hopefully that works well for our content. But here's our sample. So you've seen us share this file multiple times, but what's the difference between raster and vector? And somebody, I don't remember if it was on here or where I saw it, but there's actually reasoning behind the names. So that might be something to Google. Um, you
I'll
know,
do it.
but and then of course I always think of what is it, airplane? What's your vector, Victor? Um, but yeah, you zoom in and things are crisp. That's the easy way to tell if it's a vector image, which also means it's going to be easy for Bluebeam to interact and snap to things, right? Because it knows where to find those crisp lines.
Ooh,
If I
you'll
open
like
up the same
this.
file in raster, it looks like I don't have my glasses on, right? It's just kind of blurry. The snap functionality doesn't work at all. It's not even trying to snap to things, right? So if we do a uh, split screen here and we do vector on this side, raster on that side, and we synchronize pages, Haven't done this in a while. There we go. So you can see on the left we have Vector, on the right we have Raster, and it looks like garbage. Now, why do we bring this up? Aren't most people over this? No, not at all. I still work with firms. Oh, bad cat right there. I still work with firms that are doing the old workflow. Yep, the old workflow. And this is, I'm going to say it, and it's going to hurt my feelings to talk about it. The drafter, designer, engineer, who's ever doing the drafting work anymore, because that's a whole other topic, prints out or
They're not
sends
seeing the split screen.
Not seeing the split screen?
Yeah, I think it's frozen.
Interesting. Cool.
Unshare and reshare.
I had just shared the Bluebeam.
Yeah, that's why.
Give you both?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, the old workflow. They're sending a PDF. Somebody prints it out. They scan it, or they do their markups on a pen or paper or pen, marker, pencil. Then they scan it, and then they email it back. And when you email it back, you're gonna get raster image, which means it's gonna look sloppy. It's just gonna further get worse and worse, and you're just you're wasting time. You're wasting paper. I get the tactical feeling. I get the ASMR of wanting to write on paper, but you don't have to do that anymore. And the time savings is incredible.
And you can accomplish something similar. I had a conversation with a company where somebody was in that same vein, but you do something similar. I guess maybe not like feeling the lead, against the paper, but a stylus with an iPad.
Yeah. The Apple Pencil.
Yep.
And some of them even make that little noise. I've seen someone.
It's like an electric car where it can make
the speakers. That's a whole other pet peeve of mine, but yeah.
So let me explain because you asked for the two. So raster and vector are two primary types of spatial data in GIS. So this is going GIS. Yes. Maybe I need to do paper. Naming and paper.
I mean, we can talk GIS. I got the time, but we can pull that up too.
Yeah. So to address the challenge of reasoning about vector graphics, the visually descriptive language, which is VDLM, uses scalable vector graphics (SVG) for a more precise visual description, and an off-the-shelf raster to SVG algorithm for encoding. The model aims to enable precise visual perception and facilitate high-level reasoning based on the low-level perceptions. Additionally, differentiated raster bridges the vector graphics and raster image domains. So that's just a quick Google of what is the reason behind the names.
Yeah, I'm not sure that illuminated anything for me, but thanks for looking it up. Okay. Let's talk about another difference, a big difference here. With raster, you lose that text integrity. Now you can go in and edit text on a vector-based one, right? So if I want to put a space there or whatever, I can do that. I cannot do that in a raster, right? Even if I run, where's it at? Yeah, it just grays it out. You can't do anything. Also, it didn't really like me editing that. See how those characters didn't fully... Okay, now I'm confused. Hey, I had to hit email. Don't need to do that. That's really wild. Why did it do that? You see that? So this was hold room, right? But then I went and did this, and you can see the letters there. But when I cancel out, watch what happens. It says I'm misspelled, and then when I zoomed, it had squares. Now it's not doing it. There it goes. I clicked out.
I think it's trying to save that data into actual text format, and it couldn't characterize it.
That's a wild little bug. They're not even the same size, right? Interesting. Well, anyway, assume I didn't do that.
Mhm.
You can edit text. Now, if you have a raster and you have, I was going to say, you don't have to have the fancy version of Review anymore to run OCR. So
Nope.
now we have the ability to run OCR, CAD drawing, English, correct, blah, 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 detect, sure, do that. We've got no picture. Yeah, we'll leave that on there. Skip vector pages. Okay. Hopefully this doesn't take forever. It's just one page. But if you have, back in the day, you had to have the high-end version of Review for OCR. Now it comes in the basic one. So I run OCR. I still cannot edit text.
No,
Right?
so
It says I can. It's trying to. It's not doing anything.
yeah, because what it does is OCR enables and enhances text in the image quality. I know people have asked about running OCR and being able to snap to content. It's specifically for text. So character recognition is the technology that converts different types of documents, such as scanned PDFs and images of text, into editable and searchable digital text. It says editable, so but for some you may not be able to, depending on the quality of the raster. And to
And
come back full circle, a better explanation of raster, which may resonate more, is compressed pixels and raster images. So you have JPEGs, right? You have PNGs, which lose the quality when scanned and is commonly used in photography in complex textures. Vectors made a path of mechanical formulas, vector files. So
pretty wild. So yeah, it's not letting me edit any text. You're going to be limited to scan quality, as you mentioned, DPIs and all that, and then also what fonts you have. Some fonts are Windows True Type, which hopefully Review does a little better with. But overall, OCR did make a mess of this drawing because it's trying to do spell check, as you can see, and it's finding things that it thought was text. Hard to tell.
but that's
Yeah, it
because you're
looks like,
trying to edit it versus just search it, right? So if you exit it, yeah, there, at least you can still
yeah,
select it. Yeah.
it thinks that's an I though, right?
There
Right?
may be something in there from the CAD file that's underneath it, maybe.
Yeah, it thinks
Oh
that's an
no.
I. All those dashes, interesting. So, I mean, it is what it is, but that could wreak havoc for sure. That was a fun little test. What other things do we need to be concerned with if we're looking at raster and vector? When was the last time you were emailed a raster PDF?
I actually just had a conversation yesterday with somebody who printed out of Adobe, um, and it printed out. I mean, out of AutoCAD, and it printed out as a raster. So just being aware whenever you're doing your print settings that there is a selection box in your solution to make sure it's vector versus raster. I will give you all a caveat in Revit. There is a primary auto functioning to raster for shadows enabled. So you're going to automatically get shadows. If you put shadows on, you're going to automatically get a raster based um, PDF because it's images for enabling shadows. But everything outside of that is typically vector, but there is a selection and it's just a yes no parameter. Well, I guess not really a parameter, but a code behind the export that if you select vector by default, is usually what it is. But if you select raster, be aware you're going to have those issues when printing out. So you can accidentally print via raster versus vector. So
Yeah, there's a lot of different drawbacks, and since you said the A word, we're going to talk about it too, because Brian brought it up as well. I did that OCR in Bluebeam Revu, and it wouldn't let me edit the text in the PDF. Brian says you can do that in Acrobat, but I'm guessing still it would vary on the quality. I bet if I had a different raster sample, I might get lucky, depending on the font and the worlds aligning and dogs and cats living together, all that stuff, where I could edit the text in a raster in Revu, but the sample doesn't work.
Yeah, maybe I
And
need to download it because I have the Creative Suite. I just haven't downloaded it. We could do some comparisons at some point live.
that would be fun to do. I know we talked about that before, but we never had access to it. So we
Yeah.
could be breaking the rules a little bit. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be my personal because I have the Adobe Creative Suite. And
Mm.
ironically enough, that's where most people get it from, right? I've just never had downloaded it. But maybe we'll download it to show folks and see the comparisons between the both live. I know there's a lot that it can't do in comparison, but some of the like backbone solutions and workflows like OCR, editing text, what are the differences between the two solutions? Because we always like to create a comparison.
Hmm. And Brian brought up another good point. Um, and somewhat, this might lead us down a rabbit hole. If you have a SHX font with an obliquing angle, so pseudo italics, AutoCAD doesn't really recognize it when you bring it into CAD. So, two parts to unpack there. Um, the SHX file font, it's time to move away from those. If you use Windows TrueType fonts, you're going to find yourself with less compatibility issues. I can't tell you how often it is because it's a lot. When I get a drawing from a client and I open it up and it says, hey, these SHX fonts are missing. What do you want to replace them with? Right? Then you pick something, and then now it doesn't look the way that that person intended or that company intended. Right? Or they didn't e-transmit and they didn't send you their fonts. Now I got to install their fonts for their drawings to look right on my screen. With Windows TrueType fonts, it's always going to work, assuming that you're using Windows, which is most of the people in the technical world, at least on our side. But it's very interesting to talk about how PDFs come into AutoCAD, and maybe we'll talk about that next week.
I'm laughing because I've tried to understand when SHX fonts, and they actually were established by AutoCAD and CAD software, were introduced in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So the early versions of AutoCAD, these fonts were vector-based, shape-defined fonts stored in simplex heap exchange (SHX) files. They were developed to provide lightweight, scalable text for technical drawings, offering efficient rendering and compatibilities with plotters. So the main use of it was for plotters, not portable document formats.
Right.
And then you move to the 1990s to present day, where TrueType fonts, TTFs, became more common versus SHX fonts remain widely used in legacy CAD drawings, DXF files, plotting applications due to their fast rendering and precision. So some are still used today, but again, that's more of back. It says Autodesk released AutoCAD 1.0, and that's kind of where it really relied on those SHX fonts. So
because you
no
could make
longer.
your own fonts, and I'm sure I have a file somewhere where I made my own font that matched my handwriting. My drafting text and the way that I did things a little more architecturally, I made a font out of that. And it took a while, but then that way all of my drawings look like I did them. So some people still do that because they have a custom font. Again, that custom look or that branding of their plans matters. But those SHX things are dating back to 82 and they're still in use. And as Brian pointed out, some of the Civil 3D tutorials, and they still have those old fonts in them. And it's like, it's time to go, time to move on from there. Because it's always a headache. And support teams, oh man, I'm getting this pop-up saying that I don't have an SHX font. What's this? I'm like, well, listen here, boy. Back in my day, but you don't need them anymore.
Yeah, it's the same thing when you're going from like AutoCAD to Revit. Revit's based off of TrueType fonts as well, so that conversion it's no longer a standard, and I would assume it became no longer a standard after a decade in the 90s is when you would have wanted to switch out of them. So you're way past that. What are we in 2025?
Mm-hmm.
You're in past a century of using old SHX fonts, but they're still around. That's shows you how long it takes to adopt new solutions in our industry
Oh
if
yeah,
it's been 30 plus years.
yeah, and that's a great point of reference, right? Most firms have transitioned away from the SHX things for, oh geez, I don't even know. There's things that will linger on because, well, I've always liked that font. That's the way I like to see things. Yeah, but it causes problems in Bluebeam and for everybody else who looks at it. So Arial for the win.
Yeah. It's everyone should understand a ripple effect, but I
Hmm.
know it's hard to assume that everyone understands a ripple effect, but I think it comes from, like you just initiated earlier, silos, right? We've always done it this way. This is the way we do it, and if it impacts anyone else, so be it, right? Versus looking at the whole overall stream of a project. So
And
perfect.
yeah, Brian mentioned the U.S. survey foot, which is funny because, side note, we're going down the rabbit hole. You might see my little foam finger back here for greater you. ATG is doing an internal training program where we're training each other on different things. So I'm teaching a Civil 101 course. Michael's teaching structural and a Bluebeam course. We've got stuff for construction. We got a whole bunch of different things. And this week, I'm actually going to talk about U.S. survey feet in my class
Ooh, are
because
you?
it's people don't understand that there's multiple different kinds of feet, and we're not just talking about the ones that you walk on. So it can talk about wreaking havoc. It does a lot more when you mess up international feet and survey feet. So it's fun.
That's gonna be interesting. I can't wait to take that. It's definitely opening up more of knowledge of base things where because I know you talked about history, I talked about history. There's a lot of history just in design in general, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, I'm having fun with it. I'm excited to take. I forget what I got next.
I don't know.
Oh, I know what I got next.
Okay. Well, I think you can say now. Actually, I didn't send out my invites. I didn't do that. Okay. So, either way, let's hop in and talk about Brian. You're here now, so we'll talk about the signatures and verifications and
Mm.
get a pool of ideas from everybody in the industry. So, Justin, as you're listening to this, let's do a two part to this since Raster and Vector was half of the first half, and then the second half we'll be talking about signatures and those types of things because I know those are coming back to the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. It's come up a lot recently, so good timing.
Signatures have always been a thing in review, just so we're all clear and concise. But I think what's really coming to the forefront is certification. So what I'll do is just use a new template and we'll do an RFI form as my example because we're going to authenticate this PDF. So Windows certificates come with two different forms. Bluebeam has their own certificate. So I know the question may be which ones do we use? Probably. Um, I think it's going to come down to, in my opinion, and this is what I was going to comment yesterday to you, Brian. I think the most important part is the shareability of a certificate is going to be my example because if you send a document that's certified or signed, how did they authenticate it? And it's either by the Windows certificate via Bluebeam. I guess I need to stop saying Windows. There's the validation and credentials from Bluebeam or from an external party member, which is saved to your computer. So when we were talking about this earlier, and I was sending things to Jason when we did this at one point, it's these trusted identities that then you can see if it's validated when you're opening up the PDF again. Otherwise, it's a yellow, and we'll go through and show these examples. So I'll save this as MCR. Um, yes, look at my desktop,
On your desktop is MCR?
and there's already one. So what I'll do is I'll save it here, but I'm going to go through and sign it. So creating a digital signature is one of the things that you will want to do for signing PDFs in Review, and this can be for authenticating your seals as well. There's a couple of different ways. We've done a bunch of videos on that. That's not where we're going to get to today. That's the wrong password. Did I do that? Cool. I did that. So if I go through and sign this, and you have to resave it over, so I'll just resave, yes, replace. You have the ability to go and look at your signatures here, and this is authenticated because I have my valid authority within my local computer. I think, Jason, maybe you sign something, or maybe I send this to you. One of the two things that we could do. But we'll continue onward. If somebody's wondering from that perspective, we can send something to Jason. But if I go back to signatures, you can also validate your signatures and make sure that they are valid for what the location is for them. And then you also have digital IDs. It's a digital ID is what it is. Yes, not trusted identities. So you want to be able to import these in order to authenticate what that checkbox is. Otherwise, it becomes yellow. So if there's a different signature that's not part of this, it will be yellow because it's not valid yet.
Oh boy. So this is an interesting topic, right? Because as Brian mentioned, and this has come up before, third-party certificate providers, they have reviewing agencies that prohibit self-certifying, but it's a Windows certificate. I'm not Microsoft. Are you Microsoft? So is that technically self-certifying though? But yeah, Entrust is one that I've heard come up. There's a couple other ones that are out there too, but it becomes a big problem. So this is what Doug put on there. Doug's asking to remove digital signatures or seals when the drawings are sent out to subcontractors because you're making more work for them. Yeah, because if we're getting all these pop-ups, sort of the theme on the SHX stuff, if we can avoid these pop-ups and these warnings and things that prevent the drawing or the file or whatever from being viewed as it was originally intended, it's just causing more work and more frustration and more, I don't want to say distrust, but
I
you're
think
getting
it's
off on the wrong foot.
well, I think it's kind of one of those things where I see it both ways, right? But let's just talk about pros and cons. So someone that is signing a document like a construction set wants to authenticate it and make sure no changes happen along the downstream effect that are then pushed back and say that that was part of the original document. But then you have folks that are actually trying to utilize those documents to do like quantity takeoffs and look at the data. But then there's the issue with pop-ups because it's asking for it to authenticate through the whole process. So what do you do? How do you solve that?
I have no idea.
Please don't lock documents, make them hard. Yes. So this is the downstream effect when people are using the data that's in there, is coming into here, creating a digital signature, signing, or there's also the ability to secure the document, but I think they're certify as well, which is in that same vein. So you can certify a document without signing it. So if I redo a new one here, and we'll just do a fax form for this example. But if I come into here and I say certify this document, this is essentially going to allow people to still do some things if you wanted them to do this. And what's the reasoning? I have not. Cool, cool, cool. So we'll hit this. It's going to ask me to save it. MCR. Now I have a certify on this document, right? So it's given a blue indication that this is certified by me, which is also allowing editable for your forms because that's what I said, but it will create a pop-up for when someone receives it. So there are a couple of ways to authenticate PDFs, one via signature, one via certified, but then it also comes down to those Windows certificates of when somebody receives it, is it truly authenticating it? So if I go to my digital IDs, what certificate are you using third party? Do you need to share it? Because this is where you would add somebody's or create, well, that one's create your own. But you have the ability to run through these certificates. So there's definitely a downstream effect when you go through and use some of these. The other,
And
yeah.
wasn't there other locations to find the certificates in here? Wasn't there a link somewhere?
A
Maybe
link.
I thought there was like a place to go find more. I know there was
I can,
import.
yeah, I can export mine to like share it with you. So whenever you receive a document from me, it's authenticated,
Right.
right? You don't have any hiccups down the road. We figured that out. But this is something that is definitely being required by some municipalities, right, for submitting the CD sets. Now, those submitted CD sets are to the city. Now, does that mean you as a firm can just send out sets that aren't certified to everyone else? Or do you have to send out the certified sets to the subdisciplines and contractors?
That's a good question for the audience out there. So it's fine for the CD set, but not for the IFT set.
Yeah. So you would want to make sure that you're not sending forward to city or, well, you can digitally submit now, but if you were, I remember we had paper runners back in the day, right?
Yeah, I was
um,
one of them.
yeah. Um, but basically, don't send the same forwarded set to everyone else, right? That way, there's no downstream effect with locking down PDFs and making it more work for those end users as well.
Pretty wild. But yeah, as Brian mentioned, some of these agencies don't allow you to, I mean, you have to have a certification, but it can't be a self-certify. That's just,
Oh, so you can't. Well, that makes no sense. So
yeah,
what's a self-certified then comparative to what they offer? Isn't that kind of the same? Do you have to use an add-in?
it sounds like the signature certifying lobby has infiltrated these reviewing agencies. Because yeah, back in the day, just a signature was a signature. So yeah, Brian, they have to purchase a certificate from a third party in order to submit to
Oh,
us this
okay.
particular reviewing agency. That is insane.
So yeah, it's not saying you can't self-certify. I mean, no, it's saying you can. Okay, let me restate that.
It has to come from a
Self-certify is
third
different.
party. Yeah.
Yes, self-certified is different from self-signing. I'm putting the two and two together. So you can have a certificate that's third party that's applied to the signature that you're applying to the PDF. That was confusing to me, which was I thought signing is your certification, but your certification, which is authenticating the document, is tied to the signature. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but now you
Yeah.
have to pay somebody to
Yes.
do this.
Of course.
Yeah. That costs extra.
So if you wanted to, you can do this from a Windows certificate, right? Or you can create an ID profile that logs to that file location itself. So if you are purchasing um, a security or not a certificate from somewhere else, you can still use that in Bluebeam, right, to sign and point to that certificate. But as people are making us aware, they are requiring you to not use something like Bluebeam certificate. They're requiring you to purchase a third party certificate.
Mm-hmm. Is this a Colorado thing, Brian? So it's 124 bucks a year is what he says.
Wow.
Like that's a little over 10 bucks a month for what? New Jersey. Huh. New Jersey is very complicated. We've been doing some work up there too, and it's like, oh, where did this requirement come from? You know, what's the
Yeah.
rationale behind this? So, hmm.
It's probably saying ours are more valid. and they created some type of case against it, and now people are requiring it, which to me is so the municipality or whoever is receiving this certificate is saying that this third party is more secure signature Windows certificate than your native local one. So maybe they're worried about cybersecurity and being hacked and someone using that Windows certificate where this third party hasn't been hacked yet, and they're validating that this is more secure. Maybe that's a reasoning.
It definitely could be. I mean, we've talked about this before when we were talking about using Bluebeam Studio for evil, right? So this is where we're collaborating on a studio session or project, right? And I get fired, and I've downloaded a free trial at home, but I can still log in and I can mess with the plans while they're out for bid or they're out for construction, and I can change specs and edit the PDF, and I can do things in a devious way.
But this
I would never do, of course, but
yeah, but this would prevent it because that if you were termed and you download on your local computer, that Windows certificate's going to be different.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah. For third-party use, the browse for existing digital ID file option. Looking for recommendations on getting those. The only one I've heard lately is Entrust, and I don't know anything about them. But
I mean, we could
homework.
Yeah, we can do some Googling, but we personally don't deal with that because we don't stamp, sign, or seal anything here at ATG. So that's been long past us submitting documents to a local jurisdiction, but we have been in conversations with people of how to tie those in. But I don't think I've ever asked the question of what is the best. I think it's more of, I think what you would probably want to know is what is required by wherever you're submitting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I would assume that they have requirements and say you must use this.
Pretty wild.
So there's IdenTrust and DocuSign, yeah, DocuSign. But you can tie those certificates again. So if I wanted to tie my certificate to an area of wherever the certificate lives, right, you can definitely still do that if you wanted to. You can also create your own ID with a Windows certificate. So Bluebeam does create a Windows certificate. So if that's allowed, a Windows-based certificate, you can do that at 1024-bit RSA or 2048 RSA. So it just depends on what key algorithm you can use for submittals. Bluebeam can do that natively if you want to via a Windows certificate, or again, you can get the PKCS number 12 format from whatever provider and then download that local and use that certificate. So it just comes down to what are you being required of and finding that information, because you can accomplish this still using Revu, because the only other thing you wouldn't want to have to do is like open another application like DocuSign or something to sign it. So
what happens when you go to that browse for existing digital?
Right here, it just points to that file
up at the top, because it was telling you a next.
Oh,
it's just it's a weird way to do it. Okay.
So I've done them here, and this is just that Windows certificate based.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what this like metadata certificate information is, but obviously this is a certification path here.
Yeah.
These are your algorithm fields, it looks like, for securing the document, and this is like your stamp from Windows certificate to authenticate.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm very curious to know some of the reasoning behind this. We're talking stuff in the chat where is it a conspiracy or is there validity to this? It's always conspiracy.
Well, that's where it comes down to like you actually signing your document, right? So if I go to here, they're wanting you to certify a stamped location, right? So
Mhm.
that people can't do this. So if I were to come into here, basically, if I go and seal this, which you would never do that. I know people, I screech at me doing this because I know it's supposed to be a specific size, but I'm just doing it to fit this. Okay. So don't yell at me. I know. um, but in here, right, this is what you would be sealing. So people can't do what I just did. Right. But people need to have the data, and you can essentially use the batch sign and seal feature to accomplish this on every single page. But you can also use the same sequence of maybe including your signature with your seal and then certifying the documents. That's another workflow versus actually using the signature field to certify. You could just certify the whole document and create a secure path from that. It just comes down to what you're required of. The old workflow, we had signatures in like Revit with a seal, right? That were part of the title block itself. So I think it just comes down to what are the requirements, and you as the PE or licensed architect, do you feel provides you more security? I guess you would say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can do things like I just did, which is cut, edit, right, manipulate PDFs, and at the end of the day, they want to make sure whatever you're submitting versus me handing in this set.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it comes down to is when I'm handing you this set, this is what I'm saying is the final set. When you're submitting it, this is the final set. At anywhere along the road, was it intercepted and changed?
Because it's a thing.
Yeah.
So Brian's saying that DocuSign has the ability to issue a digital ID that can be used, but then you'd still use Review to sign the document, but you wouldn't sign it through DocuSign. So you would just use that asset that came out of DocuSign and use that into Review.
Yep. And in
Interesting.
order to get that into here again, you just come down to your digital IDs here and you can add it.
Mm-hmm.
A new one and then point or create your own. And then when you go to sign, just be aware whichever one you're grabbing, right? So if I came into here and I'm just going to do this as a manual, but before I do anything, these save over. So I've ruined many data sets this way.
Yep.
Let me go in and create a signature this area. Right. It's whatever ID you just created.
Which one of you is it today?
I don't know. We'll go to the very bottom. You can view these, right, just to verify that this is the right one you're using. You can also hit new here. So you can sign it or certify. I'm going to create a signature, and you can always change these appearances. So that's not going to be me today. Did I have this one that's edited? Maybe it's the middle one. Nope. Okay. So I don't have one. That is my terrible, let's see, signature. I think I have one that we can, I'll show you the workflow for this. Just let me verify. How are we on time?
You have 5 minutes. So while you're looking up that, I want to bring up what David put in the chat. Time to time receiving documents that have a live stamp in them. So be very, very careful with this. If you are putting a seal in your drawing and you know it's going to be sent externally, flatten your document first. That way it's going to embed that stamp into that PDF and not allow that manipulation. Not allow, we can always erase it later, but it's there are ways that nefarious uses of Bluebeam can happen, and we don't want to encourage that anyway.
Yep. But you can point to a file, which is your signature, and grab it. This was just a PDF, and I actually hand sketched it in Review in Then you just turn everything off because this comes with all of the different information that you want it to have. So it typically looks like this. You can just deselect all the data that you want it to not represent. And then you have your signature that you're pointing to here. You can do right, background, left. And then what I'm able to do is then hit OK. So now you have different appearances. You have standard text or you have this. And then I can hit OK and then save it back to my desktop, overwrite it. Yep, replace it. And then hit OK. And then now there it is, right? And I can come over to here and I can see not yet verified.
Mm-hmm. So there is no perfect workflow for this.
So if I close it and reopen it, it should be verified.
If you can keep track of your files. Oh,
and this, there's that pop up. There you are.
magical. All right. Any other questions before we wrap up for today's episode? Let me go pull up my list. Our list is looking kind of fat lately. I think we've got things for the next couple of weeks already pre-planned. So next week is going to be Bluebeam plugins. So we're going to talk about the Revit, Civil 3D, AutoCAD. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that's out there. We've got other things coming up with model coordination with ACC. We're going to talk about project coordination with Bluebeam and Studio. We're going to talk about the different versions. We got a whole bunch of different things coming up here. And as always, feel free to put us down a rabbit hole. We're here for you all. If you guys are working on different stuff than we are, and you guys are working on different stuff than the other people who are also in the chat. So if you've got a topic or question or whatever, just fire away. We love having these sort of conversations where we can go explore things and create this content for you all, because that's part of the community. So,
yep.
Well, any last words for today?
No, I think that's awesome. I'm excited about model coordination as well. So we'll be extending our veins outside of just Bluebeam and allowing you to see some workflows that are benefiting everybody, right? So we'll be talking about ACC and model coordination in that platform, and some of the workflows behind those as well. So excited to take this to new heights and explore options that we're all using, hopefully on a daily basis, if not, showing you what some of your options are out there. So you're gaining more knowledge, right? At the end of the day, Jason and I are here to help push your initiatives forward and spread some of the knowledge from what we've learned, and then have you all do the same thing to each other via the chat or YouTube comments. So I think that's it. We can wrap it up.
All right. Well, thanks for joining, everybody. We will see you next week. As always, take care out there. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and check out some of the other content on our channel.